Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you're watching from. You're tuning into the Talk Talent Show. We weren't on Tuesday, but I am super excited that we weren't because I've got a fantastic guest, Chris Turcotte. He's out of Vancouver, Canada. I like to call it Canada. You know, we Americans like to have fun. I'm sure he'll give me some grief when I bring him on here in a second. But so Chris is a very interesting gentleman indeed, right? So, you know, he started his career in Manitoba, Brandon, Manitoba, Canada, as a mortgage agent. And then he became a franchisee. He was running 3 locations across Manitoba, nearly 100 million in annual mortgage volume. You know, I'm gonna ask him, was this pre-2009, 2008, 2009? I'm sure it was. And then, you know, he got a call from somebody and made him the youngest president of a national financial organization in Canadian history. That's something to talk about, right? And so he's president of Centum Financial Group and Real Property Management Group, and his brands are on pace to really finance close to 10 billion. I assume that's going to be Canadian dollars, or it could be US dollars, in annual mortgage volume. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable, right? Now, what's really cool about him, he's a lover of Apple, Hawkins Cheesies, we'll have to ask him about that, video games, which ones are his favorite, and, you know, he engages with over 90,000 followers on Instagram, which is where where you see a lot of real estate agents putting themselves out there. So he's got a wife, he's got 2 beautiful children named Piper and Bo. I love that. Who are definitely in his top 2 favorite things, too. Hopefully it's his top 3 favorite things. And his mantra is simple: touch the heart, and that's how you win. So without further ado, I want to welcome my guest, Chris Turcotte. Hello, Chris. How are you?
Michael, thanks for having me today. And the conversion, for anyone wondering, 10 billion Canadian is about $8.30 American, I believe, if you check, but no.
All right, so you know what? Hey, take what you can get, right?
I'm totally kidding, but yeah, that US dollar right now is interesting for us people that are so close to the US border. Not that we can cross it right now, anyways, but yeah, when we could, it's costing more for those American wares. That's for sure. Thanks so much for having me today. I'm really excited.
And so am I. And we were introduced by our friend Rena Friedman Watts. So Rena, thank you very much for connecting us. So I got to ask you, what are Hawkins Cheesies?
So Hawkins, I realized it as you were saying it. I was like, wait a minute. I think that's a Canadian, like a Canadian landmark almost. They're cheesy. So it's like, what would it be? It's like, I think it's like deep fried, like, yeah, kind of like Cheetos. They're just harder and they're crunchier, and the cheese flavor is more tart. And I don't know what it is, Michael. Like, I pride myself on self-discipline in my whole journey, my whole life. And that is my kryptonite. Like, you put a family-sized bag in front of me and bad things happen. Like, it's like, avert your eyes. You're about to see shame on a whole other level. So it's I've been avoiding them the last couple of months just to get ready for summer. That's for sure.
Well, there you go. And what are your favorite video games?
You know what? I'm like, well, old school, you know, relative to who's watching, I guess. But so I'm very much a classic Nintendo, like the original NES, like, you know, Super Mario 1, 2, 3 kind of thing, Contra, all that stuff. It's definitely a stress relief for me. I haven't had the luxury of being able to play it in probably a year, but it's definitely my escapism tactic. You know, when you just want your mind to empty a little bit, I can sit in front of a classic video game. It takes me to just a better, simpler time in life, and I just kind of let go.
You know, I love that. I remember, it was many moons ago, I'm going to age myself here, getting our first Atari system and playing Pong with my brother, which was, you know, the most boring. I mean, at its level, it stripped down. It was the most basic of video games that were literally movie thing. You're playing tennis and you were just trying to hit it. But
and you had the little wheel, right? Wasn't it a wheel on? Yeah.
So there you go. All right. Well, let's move on from Hawkins Cheesies. I'll definitely try it next time when we Canadians or when we US are allowed back into Canada. Hopefully hopefully soon. Let's talk about you. I want you to, I didn't do you justice here, so I always like my guests to do them, give them the kind of that overview, that 2 to 3 minute elevator ride to tell us about yourself, how you got there, what motivated you to get there, and then we'll kind of take it from there.
Yeah, and I'll try and tell the Reader's Digest version, if you will. But my whole story was I was an only child. And I found out very early on that I was an accident. So I had older parents. My parents, if they were alive, my dad would be in his 90s kind of thing. And I'm still under 40. So you could do that math. They certainly weren't expecting a child. My dad had done the whole wife and kids thing before, had failed at it, remarried somebody who was 13 years younger than him. It was going to be his trophy wife. He was going to sell his business and travel the world. That was the plan. And as they met, my mother, who's no longer with us, we'll get to that in a second, was like, "Hey, just disclaimer here, I don't like kids." And my dad was like, "That's perfect. I don't want kids either." And then 3 weeks out from my dad selling his business, surprise, I showed up. And remember, even being 5 or 6 years old, they put me in the basement. I had a whole basement to myself kind of thing. So I was like out of the way. But at 5 or 6 years old, I remember playing those video games, but listening upstairs. And that's when I first started to learn that they were very unhappy that I had gotten in the way, and now they were miserable and everything else. And fast forward, it went through a time where my dad was very physically and emotionally abusive. He was an alcoholic. It just wasn't a great upbringing. And then at 16 years old, on my birthday, he passed away. So I'd lost him. And because of their age, I had no surviving family. No brothers, sisters, grandparents, cousins, nothing.
Not even steps? You had steps though, didn't you?
They were at the time. And now, thanks to social media, they've reached out. We've met once at an airport when I was kind of passing through on business kind of thing. At the time, they didn't really exist to me, and we still haven't really connected. They're all kind of in their 60s and everything. It's a complicated situation. At the time, there was virtually no one. And then I lost my mom when I was 23 and was all alone and had to figure that out. And so what now, going to the success route, when you're left completely alone in the world, you're going to go one of two ways. And I went very destructive for a short period of time. And then I had a moment of clarity. And if you picture this for a second, I was literally brushing my teeth one morning, and I looked up in the mirror, and I had been partying and been paying everyone's bar tab and this, that, and everything, because I just didn't want to be alone, and I didn't want to process what had happened to me. So I was doing that life, and I looked up in the mirror when I was brushing my teeth one morning, and I said, "Wow, you're going to be a statistic. You're going to be that kid in that small town that blows through all their parents' money, that was orphaned, blows through all his parents' money, and then you're just going to be this degenerate on the street that's in everyone's way." And that's basically where you're headed. And I'm a very black and white person, Michael, as you'll get to know me better, and I think you're slowly getting to know me. I'm very black and white. I'm 100% in and 100% out. So in that moment, brushing my teeth, I thought to myself, yeah, well then, you know what? If you're just going to be a burden on society, you might as well kill yourself. And then right away, I was like, but I don't want to die. And then right after that, it was like, well, then all the BS has to stop, and it has to stop now. And in that moment, I realized I was the one making sure I wasn't going to go anywhere. I was the one making sure I was going to fail. And on the flip side of that, I realized, wait a minute, I've got no safety net. God forbid when, people my age are a little bit older, they lose their family and stuff like that. There is an inheritance that helps them out later in life, and they've always got that support if they get in a tough spot, the parents borrowing a down payment for a house or helping with the wedding. I realized in that moment that the excuses need to stop, and I also didn't have any safety net. So from that moment forward, I had this unhealthy, relentless motivation to succeed. And then from there, started with the bank. You told a bit of my story there. I was very fortunate that I ended up on the mortgage broker side, ended up opening, buying a brokerage in Brandon, Manitoba. We then expanded to 3 locations and $100 million in annual funded mortgage volume. And then I was in a franchise. So I owned a franchise inside a larger organization. And then the call came one day, and that's, it's a building I'm in now, wondering if I would be interested in taking on the national brand itself. And, at the time we were funding roughly about like 1.8 billion in mortgage volume. That was only 4 years ago, and here we are. We've almost 10x'd it, and we're winning, and we're having a lot of fun. 2 years ago, I picked up our second brand, which is Real Property Management. So it's Canada's largest residential property management franchise organization that I have the pleasure of heading that up as well, because I truly believe that the two are very related and we could create an amazing buying experience and investment experience for Canadians, leveraging those two platforms and getting them to play together. Outside of that, yeah, you nailed the rest. The only other thing is my Instagram following. People think, oh, it must be a lot about real estate. It's actually nothing about real estate whatsoever. I tell my story. I'm very raw and honest about my story. And it started off as just, trying to be as real as possible about what had happened to me in hopes that somebody reads it. And that's the reason that they don't give up that day. And that's really the mission of a lot of my content.
And I think that's a hell of a story. I mean, and
that's a rushed version.
Yeah, right. But this may sound cheesy, but I mean it. And I'm very black and white too. But your parents have to be so proud. If someone who has passed is able to look down and see their sibling, or see their child, not sibling, see their child, from above, they got to be smiling pretty wide. It's got to be ear to ear. So I think it's a fantastic story. You're also part of the. I forgot to mention you're part of the Forbes Real Estate Council, Advisory Council. Is that right?
Yeah. I had my first full article published for Forbes. What was it? 2 days ago, and then I just noticed this morning, actually in preparation for this, I couldn't figure out why my phone was blowing up. They featured me again this morning, apparently, just chiming in on a little bit of an article. So yeah, really. I'm very grateful for that opportunity. Anytime I get a chance to talk about the value, I think, franchising in the real estate world, and anytime I get an opportunity to tell that story and go a little bit longer, I'll take it. But to have it on such a platform as Forbes, I'm just incredibly grateful.
Yeah. So want to welcome my friend Julianne Murphy from Little Rock, Arkansas, on the call, and then a surprise, Adele Hutto is from Charleston, South Carolina. And Adele, if you're still on, it's where I was born and raised, and actually headed back there in early April for my mother's 80th birthday. So maybe we should connect. So that's how you bring connections to life, right? So small world, isn't it, right? I'm not going to say the earth is flat because I don't believe that it's flat. I believe it's very, very round. We're not going to get into a philosophical discussion on that. But it is a small world, and we're connected by people. And just the happenstance of us two meeting shows that there are like minds out there that whether it's Rena introducing us or we had eventually stumbled onto each other. I believe that we're all put on here to work together, whether we're in entrepreneurs or working inside an organization or leading an organization like we both do. It's a small world. So let me ask, let's kind of talk about real estate, because I know real estate right now is really hot here in the United States. They were saying that the housing market, just in Dallas alone, the demand is so high, and the supply is just ultimately down to next to nothing. Are you seeing that as well throughout Canada or in certain parts of Canada?
Yeah, there's a lot going on. I can't speak to mortgage rates in the U.S., but here they were historical lows.
Oh, they were.
Yeah, so of course that's just a double-edged sword from a mortgage. Let's separate it. Obviously, there's the real estate side, which is people buying and selling their real estate, and then my world is the finance side, which gets even busier because you're doing the mortgages for the buying and selling, but because rates are so historically low, everyone is trying to redo their mortgage. It's a little bit different here in Canada, Michael, where you guys have much longer terms of your mortgage. Well, here in Canada, you could have a 1-year term at the bank, you get a 2-year term, 5 years is considered long. So the turnover is very, very rampant and repetitive. So yeah, you layer in low rates, and it was just, and then the other side of that, just to make it more complex but beneficial, is because the real estate market is going like this, everyone in a home currently, well, of course, the value of their home is going through the roof. So suddenly you have people thinking, wow, I have all this equity I didn't have a few months prior. So yeah, it's been gangbusters. What's interesting, and I'm curious to see if it's similar in Dallas. I'm in downtown Vancouver right now. Like you can see by the high rises downtown Vancouver. If you Google it or if you follow real estate, one of the most expensive real estate places on the planet, and it's a ghost town. Like it is an absolute ghost town. So what's interesting is a lot of the movement is for the outlying communities now. They have boomed, right? People don't see why they should have the high rent and the high mortgage for the downtown lifestyle when there is no downtown lifestyle right now. Everything is closed. You're not going to the movies. You're not going to the bars. You're not going to the clubs. So I'm in a city called Langley. It just outlies probably about like 30 minutes outside of Vancouver. And for the first time, and keep in mind, I'm in the real estate industry and I've never seen this happen. I have realtors wearing Tom Ford suits knocking on my door, begging me to sell because they have buyers and there's nothing available. I've never seen it. It's fascinating. The real question, and I don't have a crystal ball, as the world starts to open up, are we going to see a rapid reversal where everyone wants to get back downtown? Yeah, exactly. Talking about let's talk about from a human spirit standpoint. Over this last year, have we all kind of reevaluated what actually matters? Having all that family time and everything else, so maybe those bedroom communities are going to be more valuable. But it's certainly hot right now, and I spend the bulk of my day, especially on the mortgage side, just telling brokers to keep going. I know you're tired, but we've got a saying here in Canada. I don't know if it's in the US as well, but it's like you make hay while the sun shines, right? And everyone's just trying to strap on and keep up.
Yeah. So I don't know. You may remember a couple of months ago, James Altucher, who wrote an article, I think it was in the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal, about he doesn't think that the New York market will ever recover from this because people got the hell out of New York, right? You had 8 million people in a centralized location. Where'd they all go? They went to Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont. They got upstate. And, now towns in, like, I think Vermont, it was on a 60 Minutes. I don't know if you get 60 Minutes up there, but it's a CBS news program here in the States, that a lot of people migrated to Vermont and they're actually kind of liking it up there. They like that more relaxed lifestyle because now we're we can remotely work from wherever we live, right? And so the question is do you think it's got to come to a head at some point where you're running out of houses? You only have so much geographical land. I mean, I know Dallas is extended 25 to 30 miles north. I mean, literally 30 minutes from the Oklahoma border, because Dallas is about an hour away from the Oklahoma border on the Red River. You're going to run out of land. And so the question is more people migrate to Texas from California, from Seattle, from Oregon, because it's super expensive to live in those towns. Are you is there gonna be some type of bubble burst at some point? I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but
yeah. Well, they've been calling for a bubble for how long now, right?
Right. 5 years.
Yeah, I just find we always roll and adapt, right? And what I'm really curious about, like thinking of downtown Vancouver, thinking of the new, like I'm sure you've been to Manhattan, kind of thing. Like, yeah. I'm not even American, and I'm dying to get back to Manhattan because it's just a beautiful, magical place. And I was there last September before the world closed out, and had the opportunity to go to VaynerMedia and stuff like that, and just had a blast. And where I'm going with that is, I think the big cities, they're magical places that draw people in. I think what you're going to see happen, and we're already seeing it here, I'm sure you're seeing it in downtown Dallas, we're certainly seeing it in New York. Those people that couldn't get to New York because it was too expensive, everything's kind of reciprocating, right? Those prices are going to come down, and suddenly the people that could never afford it are going to be able to afford it. So it's kind of like that I'm curious to see how much pent up demand there is, because we're seeing it in Vancouver already. When things adjust, people that thought they couldn't afford to live downtown before are going to be able to for the first time. And then all I have to say about that on the property management side is thank goodness for rent control, because you're going to get in low and then they can't jack it up on you right away. So
yeah, I mean, when I look, you look around and you go, okay, yeah, a lot of people lost their jobs, and of course, these are restaurant and hotel workers and stuff like that. But I mean, there are commercial properties, commercial apartments going up all over the city. So in other words, instead of building out, it's building up. So like that apartment, I'm sure those are apartments or condos right behind your head. So people are going to start like I can't. So you mentioned Manhattan. I can't wait to get to Manhattan because I got my oldest and my middle in Manhattan. So I'm ready to get back to the city and visit my kids. Right. I miss them. I mean, I had them here during the pandemic, but I already miss them. They haven't been here since August. So, it's, we'll get back there and we'll have to break bread in New York like I told you before, I've never been to Vancouver. So,
you're missing out.
There, right?
You're missing out, and your dollar, obviously, because the conversion goes further. So great
right.
spot. Yeah,
That's
great
right.
spot. Absolutely great.
So we can talk real estate all day, but obviously the title of my broadcast is Talk Talent. So let's kind of switch gears, if we will. So roughly how many employees are between the company that you manage? How many employees do you have?
Yeah, so I'll answer in a couple different buckets. So first of all, our parent company is called the Charlwood Pacific Group. So it's owned by the Charlwood family, and we're all in the same building. So that's why I wanted to talk about the organization as a whole. So I have 2 of the 4 brands in the organization. The other brands we own, you may have encountered, it's called Uniglobe Travel. So it's a commercial travel agency franchise model that's in 62 countries across the globe. And then we also own this little company you might have heard of called Century 21. So we own Century 21 Canada. So obviously we're very involved in real estate, as you can see. So in our entire organization, we employ just over 70 people. And then from the real property management and Centum side, so the 2 brands that I have the pleasure of overseeing, I think I've got 13 or 14 of those. So I've got a team of 13, 14 people between the 2 brands.
Nice. So, when you look at your talent across the organization, what are the key things that you look for when you're hiring people into your organization? Because you're growing, yet it's a stable organization, yet you are continuing to grow and expand your reach, especially with a company like Century 21 Canada, right? So, and I know most of those aren't employees; those are agents. Agents don't count as employees, correct?
Correct. Yeah. I'm not. Yeah, we were talking agents. Between my 2 brands alone, we're closer to 2,500. So no, I was just talking just direct reports.
Staff. Yeah. So when you look at when you're talking to agents and you're trying to assess if they're a right fit, what are some of the characteristics you look for in a person? We know that they obviously you prefer to have someone that has sold houses before, but what are the key personality traits that you're looking at when you're doing hiring?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things there. So the franchisees have their own thing, right? If they're looking for real estate agents or mortgage brokers, I'll just speak to here at like corporate office. I'm a huge believer in like core values, not in the sense of the random motivational poster in the 90s, when Jim Collins put out a book and everyone was like, oh, we better have those. And let's just slap a bunch of stuff up on the wall so that it looks like we're following it. I mean, core value. Yeah. And I mean, and everyone has it. Everyone has the eagle soaring and it's a success underneath. Like, I don't need that stuff. What I mean is core values of like who we actually are as people, right? And something we've tried to focus on here is hungry, humble, and smart. And it's the 3 that we try to abide by. And they're not what you would think. So smart, I don't mean academic smart. I mean, are you people smart? As I'm talking with you, Michael, I'm looking for cues. I'm understanding your vibe, and because of the personality you are, am I a smart human being intuitively that I know how to navigate people? Am I smart? Am I emotionally and personally smart? Humble. We want talented people, but we also want people that don't use that as a weapon, right? We want people that understand their value, but they're not arrogant, right? So that's what we mean by humble. And then hungry is, we want people that wake up in the morning with pep and they're inspired with what they do. But a lot of that is us providing clarity. We'll talk about that in a minute. I don't go by a resume. The last, I don't know how many people I've hired, I will invite them for an interview at the office. And this, for anyone watching this that knows me well, or anyone, if there's employees watching, they've all experienced this. They show up at my door, my coat is in hand, they're very confused, and I say, let's go for a walk. And I take them across the street to the coffee shop, we grab a coffee, and then we walk the seawall. So you can't see it, but a block that way is the ocean. And we walk along the seawall and we just talk. And I already know their resume. Like I read a resume, okay, fine. I know in 5 minutes what you understand. What I want to know is, what kind of human are you? Because if you're not the right kind of human, I don't care how smart you are. Warren Buffett, I was watching an interview with him yesterday, and he's like, you could have the smartest, most qualified person in the world, but if they don't have integrity, that's the last person you want. You don't want a smart, talented person without integrity, because that's very dangerous, right? And integrity is such a buzzword. Take that off the table. I just want to understand the human they are. I want to make sure that we can help in their journey, not just from an employment standpoint. Like, I can give you a job title there, you can put it on your resume, fine. But can I, like, a leadership to me isn't just the 9 to 5. The leadership to me is like, what are you trying to accomplish in life? And for the time that you're here, can I add to that? Is there traits and and things you want to grow, both personally and business wise, that we can contribute to and make sure there's a good fit?
Yeah, I love that. So in the last 24 hours, you're the third person who agrees with me that resumes are BS.
Yeah.
It's just a piece of paper. And I think, and I don't know if it's the American way of hiring, and I don't know if it'll ever change, because, us Americans, we're a wee bit stubborn. But I agree with you. I'd rather go take a walk along the seawall. There's no seawall here in Dallas, but I'd love to, just take a walk, head to a park and just kind of, sit down at a bench with a table in between us, and let's get to know each other.
Yeah.
Get to
100%.
know who the real Michael is. Get to know that I'm resilient, I'm passionate, I'm a giver, and I help people grow. Those are my four key qualities, right? And when I interview people, so we were talking before we went live that we're looking for, we're both kind of in the hunt for a virtual assistant, and because we recognize that we got to pass off, in order for us to grow, in order for the business to grow, we got to pass those responsibilities off to someone, right? But to me, when I look at somebody, I like to use, it's called UMAP, which I don't know if we've discussed, but it looks at the top 5 strengths per the Gallup Clifton strengths, if you're familiar with that. But it also looks at their values, and it looks at their skills. In there's 100 interview questions that you don't get those interview questions, but you can look to somebody. I can analyze how they responded, what their strengths are, and come up with questions that helps me get to know them. And I'll know within the first 10 minutes of a conversation if this person has exactly what I'm looking for. Because what happens in most interview processes, and I don't know if that's this, if you're seeing this in Canada, but here in the United States, if you don't have all the check boxes by all the skills, including industry experience, including so let's say going to work for a technology company. If you were to apply to a technology company, you and I won't be considered in the United States because we haven't helped a technology company, which to me is complete and utter what. If we've got the 15 to 20 to 25 years of experience, you in real estate, me in recruiting and HR, we can do it. It's not a one size fits all. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, 100%. It's skills you can teach. And I realize I have, especially being a younger brand leader in our industries, people think that, he's got rose-colored glasses. He's, I barely qualify as a millennial, but I'm right on the cusp there in 81. So, people are like, oh, that millennial is all warm and fuzzy and everything else. It's like if you're a good human, And like you said, Michael, with the resume, like this is the resume. Here's the most valuable part of a resume, in my opinion. It's this side. It's the whites. It's the, like read it. Okay, Michael, this is what you do. Now I have a general understanding of what you do. But guys, this is the most valuable spot because you flip it over, you put the white spot up, and you start taking notes. And all you're doing is trying to learn on the individual they are and everything. So where I'm going with that is I need them to be a good human that has real aspirations, real goals, and not only what can they bring to the team, but more importantly, because if you can't nurture them and feed their needs and desires, they're not going to stay. So I really spend the bulk of that time being like, what can you get from us? What can we get from you? Does this make sense? And then as far as skills are concerned, you've given me an understanding of what you put yourself through. We can teach the rest.
Correct. Yeah, Adele said it great. She said, hire for character, train for competence. And,
yeah.
and I think you hit a key point there, Chris. You said, look, if I bring, and I was talking to a gentleman this morning in Israel. Happy birthday, Lee Jaffa. That think about if you bring someone on, whether they're a graduate or maybe even a degree, which you may go, that really doesn't matter. If they've got the smarts, the street smarts, and the intelligence to learn and grow, they're going to stay with you. They might not stay with you for 10 years, but you got them for at least 5 years because you actually gave them a chance, number one. And number two, you helped them grow to get to their next level. Now, granted, we want them to stay within that organization and you want us to grow. But the best employees I've had are employees who have left me to go on and into management positions because of
bingo
there, right?
I'd rather have 5 passionate years of someone than 20 years of them punching a clock, waiting for retirement or waiting for that pension. And if you allow, I got a really quick story about that. One of our marketing hires, we went for a walk and it's the middle of the pandemic and I do a search on social media because I'm very active and I noticed she's gotten, she might be watching this and, I'm not going to obviously use her name, but you'd know right away. She's got 2 or 3 businesses. She's got a variety of different businesses and all of it leverages online marketing, social media marketing, pixeling, this and that and everything. She's incredibly talented. And we go for this walk after my marketing manager had hired her. We go for this walk and we go grab a Starbucks and I'm just getting to know her. And I said, what I need to know is, what skills do you need? And I have a general understanding of what you can bring to the table with us. You're very talented. I know what you can bring. What courses, what training, what marketing people can I introduce you to level up? So ultimately we gain from that. And then here's the curveball, Michael. I literally said it to her. I said, so when the pandemic's over and you leave us to go back to running your businesses, it was still a great win-win. And she was completely floored. And I'm like, am I right? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, you've got businesses that are impacted by the pandemic. And, I totally get it. You need a paycheck coming in and everything else. How can I go all in on you so that we benefit? I already see your talent, but what can I give you so that when you leave here one day, you're that much better off? The amount of loyalty and buy-in that we have from her is uncanny. And we've since talked and she's like, you know what? I've now found a way that I think I can do both. Because now things are starting to pick up again, the world's starting to open up again. But she's very much like, you know what, I want to stay and I'm going to rearrange my business. I'm going to hire people, VA, stuff like that, so that I can do both because I really want to stick around. I like it here. And that's what people miss, right? Like stop looking at people as, oh, I can fill this box for 20 years. You don't want the person that in 2 weeks says, yeah, okay, I'll stay 20 years. You don't want that person.
It becomes
Yeah, you want the person that says, wow, I jumped out of bed in the morning because I believe what you believe and we're on a mission together and I'm so excited to be here. And you know what? If that means you're replacing that person every 2 years because you're investing in them and they're going out to fly, that's one of my interview questions actually is, okay, forget this job for a second. What's your long-term goal? And of course, they don't want to answer that during a job interview because they're terrified to answer because they're like, well, that means I might not get the job. But I want to understand it. I want to, like we had another marketing gentleman I went on a walk with. He was like, I I don't want to be a marketing manager one day. I don't want to lead a team. I don't have leadership skills. That's not me. I'm like, okay, so what's your ultimate goal? So my ultimate goal is just to be the best marketer you have. And that without it being said, everyone's like, wow, that guy's the best. And that's going to require tools and everything else. I was like, okay, perfect. So
do you ever dig in to go, well, what does that mean to you? What does the best mean?
Yeah, 100%. And it was respect, like that undebatably people look and be like, wow, he really relays the message. He knows how to speak to the target audience. He's constantly creative. And that was something which means I said, okay, that's going to mean like staying up on technology, editing techniques and this and that. And sure enough, I put it out to my team a couple of months ago and said, what courses do you guys want? He fired in a few courses and we're getting him those courses and we're going to go all in. But what do you think his buy-in is now when he's like, oh, wow, like, my employer wants me to reach my long-term goal. I can't. People are so broken on the way they do it, right? It's if you're hiring just for what's on a resume, it reminds me of the saying we have in the mortgage business, and just in life in general. Like the worst client you want in the mortgage business is a rate shopper. I'm sure you've heard that term in the US as well. Like where Michael, you're giving me your elevator pitch, and I cut you off, and I'm like, yeah, I don't care. What's your lowest rate? The only value there that I have to you as your mortgage broker is how low I can go. There's no value to that relationship. When you're hiring on just a resume, it's the same thing. I'm basing our relationship on what it says on your certificate. It's so broken.
It really is. So let's kind of turn the gears here to once they're in the shop. One of the things that like one of these clients that I'm working on right now, they have me training their employees to be prepared for internal interviews. So it's one of my clients. So I don't know many other people that are doing that, but essentially I'm using what I did when I had to pivot to the kind of the career coach last year. I took that concept, didn't sell it. This guy came to me and said, hey, I want you to take what you do to coach our people, to coach them for success, teach them how to network inside the organization, teach them how to learn about other departments in the organization, teach them how to interview, prepare. But what it all led to was their internal program that they created, which was an individual development program where the employees and the managers got together and talked about, all right, after I've been here 6 months to a year, what's my next step? In a very flat organization, which makes it, even more challenging and interesting. But what I love is they're investing in their employees, and we've already kind of talked about it. But what are some of the, for you to move talent up into your organization, no matter how, if you have multiple layers, or even if you're a flat organization. What are you looking for once that person's in, and like what's, whether it's your organization or kind of just in general, how do you know when they're ready for their next move, whether it's a lateral move or a promotion?
Yeah, so actually I'll leverage your scenario there to kind of illustrate the point. Like when they had asked you to create something, right away in my head I was like, but if they're asking you to do that, then they shouldn't have their job, because as a leader, that's their job. Now they're leveraging you to do it, but like therein lies my answer. Like what I look for is transparency, self-awareness, and then the ability to execute. So let me explain. Like we are an organization. Like I said, we went from 1.8 billion to 10 billion in a span of 4 years. We are going to have to scale if we want to provide the same level of service, support, and innovation for our networks. So right now, yeah, like I would much rather promote from within. So I need a couple things. I need self-awareness. The people that, and it actually happened recently. One of my people that leads our operations department said, "Hey, VP role one day, tag, I'm it." And what I would ask of them was, they have to be self-aware, meaning they have to be able to come to me and say, "Here's where I think my gaps are." Because it's naive to think that you could level up and you already have everything that needs. So I need that level of self-awareness to say, okay, and I need that transparency where they can be real with themselves and real with me. And so many people, until you have like vulnerability-based trust, which is a whole nother thing we could talk about on another, we can't go there today. But vulnerability-based trust is like just the ability to say you're sorry, admit weaknesses, and know that it's in a safe place, right? I need them to be able to say, I actually need to get better at my communication, and I'm not the best at time management, but but this is what I think I bring to the table for, say, a VP role. I need the self-awareness and transparency for them to be able to lay that out on the table, so we can then sit side by side and say, okay, so what do we need? Is it courses? Is it coaching? What do we need? But the second part is execution. Everyone loves hearing that, oh, you're going to give me that and then that'll get me here. No. I'm going to open the door so you have a chance to improve on what you feel your gaps are. Now the real test and really the application process is me to sit back and say, now are they going to use it? Right? So as a leader, it's like, I want to hear what the gaps are. I will do everything in my power to get them the resources they need. But now it's like, okay, but are they going to put in the work? Because it's so easy. All of us are so quick to say, hey, I want mine. But how many of those people are willing to put in the work? So that's kind of my process there.
And I love that. So the same client, their focus is that as an employee, you own your own development. So I do love that, because a lot of companies, they have all these, nothing against chief learning officers or learning and development folks, but they have all these folks that put in all these wonderful programs, whether it's Rosetta Stone or Harvard Business courses, and they load up their LMS with all these courses, and they a year later they look and say, well, nobody's really using this. Well, did you bother to ask the employees what's important to them before going out and just buying all these programs up? And also, I think when you point them towards an e-course, you take what you and I have been talking about, you take that human element out of it. Sure, I may learn a couple of things and try it, but I guarantee you 3 weeks later, if I'm presented with a similar scenario, am I going to go back and go, oh yeah, well, I learned this in an e-course? No. The best learning experiences are when you fail, or when you succeed and you understand why you succeeded or why you failed, and you have someone that really cares enough about you to help you grow.
Yeah, the courses and perks and everything, that like I consider that like soft culture, right? Like when you talk about culture in an organization, people are like, oh, this is our culture, this is what we do. And they would label that, and you see this a lot, Michael. They're like, oh, well, this is what we do. We have value. It's like, that's soft culture. That's the stuff on the surface that you're like, here, do this. And, if you're that 1 in 10 that actually hooks the e-course and that somehow keeps you passionate, versus hard culture is like, when you strip all the BS away, when you take off all the gift wrapping and all the shine fades, who are you actually? And the hard culture to me is you know what, Michael? I know you're striving towards this. I'm about to go into a meeting and you're about to see how that is in live action. Do you want to join me? That's the difference. Do you want to be a fly on the wall? And then taking the time and investing the time in you to debrief after. Okay, so what did you think of that? How would you have handled that? Like what questions or what curiosities did that bring, kind of thing. I think it's just, it comes down, do you really mean to invest in people or not? That's, and I realize that's a little bit crass, but yeah,
it's real.
It's real. It's real, especially in a small group here. Like if you're telling me I can't personally invest in 14 people, like they should form a door right here and I should jump out of it as far as this job is concerned. Like it's just like leadership is about leading, and so many people have it twisted where some people figure when they get to a certain job, they're like, well, I've earned this and now I can relax. Like leadership needs followers, and you can have followers because it's your job title, or you could have followers because people genuinely want to follow you. And I just think, the companies that get the most buy-in and the most value and the most appreciation from their employees, you've got to actually really invest in people.
Absolutely. So I think we've talked about a lot today, haven't we?
I feel like there could be a part 2 here eventually one day.
There has to be a part 2.
I'm passionate about this stuff, as you can see.
No, but there's not many leaders out there like you, right? To them, it's numbers, reports. But for a leader like yourself to take a different approach to it, I wish there were more leaders like you. And I'm sure that there are plenty here in the U.S. but it's I think we need to stop here because I like the last sentence about investing, about you as the leader investing in our people, and doing it personally, not doing it through a software program or, go to a leadership course and come back and tell me what you learned. But it's the just-in-time learning, I think, is what we used to call it. So I want to thank you for being a guest. I want everybody to connect with Chris on LinkedIn. Of course, I should have added in here, you can also follow him on Instagram to hear more about his personal stories. So is there a book in the future, Chris?
Oh, everyone, that is probably the most common question I get, just to tell the whole story. And short answer, yes. It just, it's gotta be in due time, right? I've been scribbling for the last couple of years. I'm sure one day, but every time I think about starting, I'm like, yeah, but I don't think that story is done yet. I did put my name up. That is my actual handle on all social medias platforms. By all means, please connect. I'll help anyone in any way I can for virtually anything. So it's just try to, like I said, that whole mantra of touching the heart. That's how you win. I try to do that inside the organization and outside the organization. So, Michael, I appreciate the opportunity. This was fantastic, and I feel like we could go a while longer, but
we could. But I know you've got business to tend to. I've got business to tend to. It's called lunch. But thank you so much. So for all of at least the people that were on live, Julianne, Adele, Brian White, who I know who had to go, Vicky Gurney, thank you for tuning in. CJ, who else we got? I think that hit it. But certainly I would ask if you could in the comments, Chris, just attach the article, the Forbes article. I'm sure everyone would love to read it because it's real estate is important. People are heavily invested in it, and of course, it gives us a little more glimpse into your thinking and leadership on the Real Estate Advisory Council with Forbes. So, if you could attach it. So, everybody, thanks for tuning in. We'll be back Tuesday with another live show. It's almost the weekend, folks. Just 1.5 more days, and we are there. And hope you're staying safe. I know I'm getting number 2, the second vaccination on Saturday. So super excited. And then I'll fly to Vancouver and meet Chris personally. So I have no more excuses, right?
Looking forward to it.
All right. So as I like to say, be well, stay safe, wear a mask, even though everybody's letting their guard down. And we'll talk to you next week. See you later.